Yes, hello, I need an airlift. He's dangerous. He won't let me in with my HOA key. That was her actual 911 call. She wasn't joking. She genuinely believed a helicopter was the next logical step when her fake HOA master key didn't open my front door. What she didn't know, the dispatcher she was yelling at, was my son. And what started as a petty power trip turned into a full-blown felony, complete with flashing lights, public arrest, and a courtroom showdown that exposed everything she'd built. I might just hold the unofficial world record for the most ridiculous HOA meltdown in suburban history. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, and if you've ever met someone like Victoria Harlow, Queen of Delusion. Because this isn't just a story of pettiness, it's about standing your ground, outsmarting a tyrant, and letting karma arrive by airlift. My name's Arthur Davies. I'm 25 and access systems engineer. Yes, the guy who designs locks to keep people like Victoria out. I moved into this neighborhood for peace, not paperwork. But peace died the day Victoria became HOA president. I'm not the loud, confrontational type. I solve problems with logic, with facts, with laws. That's how I was raised. That's how I work. My home is my sanctuary, simple, quiet, locked. Especially locked. So, when Victoria started rewriting community rules like she was the sheriff of suburbia, I didn't panic. At first. But when she knocked on my door, clipboard in hand, and told me I needed to submit a key for centralized entry, I realized this wasn't about neighborhood safety. It was about power, and I was about to become her favorite target. But I wasn't about to make it easy. Victoria Harlow was 28, but carried herself like a retired general in heels. She drove a spotless, pearl-white Lexus, always parked just so, never an inch off-center. Her hair, a silver helmet that defied wind and logic. She dressed like she was heading to a board meeting with God-pressed blazers, neutral slacks, expensive but joyless. When she became HOA president, she didn't win votes, she absorbed power. She called herself the steward of community standards. I called her something else, though, never to her face. She patrolled the neighborhood with a tape measure and a glare. She cited people for flower petals on sidewalks, for wind chimes that dared to make sound, for grass growing too enthusiastically. It would have been funny if it wasn't real, but then Victoria unveiled her big idea, an HOA master key, and that's when things stopped being funny. Before Victoria, this place felt like home. People waved, swapped cookies, borrowed tools. The HOA sent birthday emails and organized block parties. Then came her reign. The newsletter turned into a weekly violation log. Petunias were non-compliant foliage. Kids' chalk drawings were graffiti. Neighbors stopped chatting. Lawns looked nervously manicured. Everyone pretended not to notice her slow-driving Lexus prowling past. She rewrote the HOA bylaws like she was scripting a dystopian novel. 3 approved house colors: beige, slightly darker beige, and depressed beige. She fined old Mr. Gable for hanging a bird feeder, said it might attract unregulated wildlife. It wasn't just rules. It was fear. Fear of stepping out of line, fear of becoming the next name on her clipboard. But no one pushed back, until she demanded keys to every front door, and I was the first to say no. It happened on a rainy Tuesday HOA meeting with barely 10 people in the room. Victoria stood at the clubhouse podium like she was addressing the United Nations. With safety in mind, she said, smiling like a Bond villain, the board will implement a universal master key for emergency access. Mouths dropped. Even her usual bootlickers blinked. A key, someone asked, that opens every house. She nodded proudly. Precisely. For inspections, for maintenance, for efficiency. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a decree. She acted like it was a gift. I saw it for what it was, an invasion. No debate, no vote. Just Victoria rewriting the rules again. I felt the room shrink. The silence wasn't agreement, it was submission. I raised my hand, my voice steady. Can you cite which article of the bylaws allows that? She didn't answer. She just glared, and the war quietly began. I stayed after the meeting. While others quietly filed out avoiding eye contact, I stood my ground. "Victoria," I said calmly, "you don't have the legal authority to demand access to private residences. HOA rules don't override state law." She smirked. "It's for everyone's protection." "From what?" "My microwave?" Her expression cracked. I followed up the next morning with a certified letter quoting Virginia Property Code's trespass laws and several HOA precedents. I stated clearly I would not provide a key. I would not consent to unauthorized entry. And if anyone attempted to alter my locks, I'd consider it criminal. I attached copies to the full board. Their reply, a one-line email, "Master Key Initiative proceeding as planned." Victoria had no intention of backing down, but neither did I. She wanted compliance. What she got was a locked door and a well-informed enemy. Notices began piling up. Grass too tall by 0.25 inches. Walkway edge uneven. Attached was a shaky photo looked like Bigfoot took it. I double-checked everything. Measured, photographed, sent rebuttals, useless. Next, trash bins visible. Then, mailbox color non-compliant. Victoria was weaponizing bylaws. I was target practice. She cruised past in her Lexus, smirking like a bored dictator. Most neighbors caved cut grass, painted mailboxes, handed over keys. I didn't. Every violation I documented. Every threat I logged. Because I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was building a timeline. And she had no idea I was 10 steps ahead. The neighborhood cracked. Some supported me in whispers. A note in my mailbox. A silent thumbs up. Most silent, submissive, scared. They fell in line. Trimmed hedges, obeyed. Gave her keys. Victoria ruled like a queen of HOA Rome, clipboard sunglasses, and the judgment of a DMV agent on a power trip. People avoided me. Not because I was wrong, but because I was visible. And she punished visibility. Then came the escalation, a notice taped to my door. Mandatory lock inspection. Voluntary in bold red. Yeah, voluntary like an IRS audit. I didn't tear the notice down. I scanned it, logged it, time-stamped it. Then I fortified. High security locks, restricted keys, 2 hidden cameras, 1 at the door, 1 at the driveway. Crystal clear, date stamped. Victoria wanted to catch me slipping. I gave her nothing. Called my son. "She sounds unhinged," Mark said. "Record everything." I did. Because this wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. Another envelope arrived. Gold, HOA seal. Inside a reminder, but it read like a threat, if access is not granted. Board review finds legal escalation. Even mention suspension of community privileges. What does that even mean? Sunlight. It ended with failure to respond may suggest non-cooperative intent. It wasn't a suggestion. It was bait. I didn't bite. I sent a letter, short, polite, legal, citing state law, mentioned counsel, and 6 words. Any entry will be considered trespassing. No drama. Just the sound of a boundary locking into place. The next morning, my newspaper was gone. Just gone. Day after that, I found a long, thin scratch along my driver's side door. Not deep, but deliberate. Coincidence? Maybe. But then I saw her. Victoria's Lexus idled just beyond my driveway. She wasn't looking at her phone. She wasn't lost. She was watching. Windows up, sunglasses on, engine purring like a patient predator. And when I stepped out to look directly at her, she smiled. Not warmly, not friendly. That smile said, "Go ahead. Prove it." Neighbors avoided my eyes. Doors closed faster when I walked by. I wasn't just the holdout anymore. I was the enemy. She wanted me rattled, cornered, alone. But all she did was give me more evidence. And I started backing it all up twice, on cloud and USB, because something told me she was getting desperate. I booked coffee with a friend of mine, Dan property attorney sharp as broken glass in a silk glove. After 15 minutes flipping through my stack of printed notices, letters, photos, and video screenshots, he looked up and whistled. "She's not just pushing boundaries, Arthur," he said. "She's building a legal minefield beneath her own feet." He helped me draft a cease and desist. Formal, direct, legally bulletproof. If Victoria made one wrong move, one lock turned one. Forced entry, one more lie, I'd have her dead to rights. Dan even offered to testify. That night I reviewed everything again, labeled folders, synced drives, formatted timelines, no emotion, no overreaction, just structure, because logic wins where ego implodes. I went to bed calm, but as I closed the curtains I saw her Lexus again, parked half a block away, lights off, engine still warm. She was watching, waiting. So was I. It was a Tuesday morning, quiet, bright, ordinary, until it wasn't. I was in my home office when I heard it. Click, jiggle, metal against metal. I froze, checked the front cam feed. There she was, Victoria Harlow, yellow blazer, oversized clipboard tucked under one arm, and in her right hand her prized HOA master key. She looked confident, entitled, like the door owed her something. She slid the key in and twisted. Nothing. Jiggled it. Twisted harder. Still nothing. She tilted her head, muttered something, flipped it upside down like the problem was orientation. My lock didn't budge. I sipped my coffee and watched. Every second streamed in 1080p HD, audio crystal clear. Then she stepped back, pulled out her phone and dialed. I already knew who she was calling, and that's when the real show began. She paced on my porch phone to her ear, voice rising with each step. From inside, I couldn't hear much until she started yelling. "He's unhinged. He's refusing lawful entry. I'm the HOA president. I demand access." I nearly choked on my coffee. She was calling 911 because her fake master key didn't work, because my own door didn't magically let her in. And the voice on the other end of the line, my son, Mark, county dispatcher, calm under pressure. He recognized the address instantly. He didn't say anything to give himself away, just started his standard protocol. "Can you repeat that, ma'am? You're locked out of someone else's home." Her tone sharpened. "He's a threat. He's barricading himself. I think I might need an airlift." What? Mark muted the line, leaned back, and whispered to his colleague, "I think this is going to be fun." Victoria's voice cracked through my security mic, sharp and frantic. "He's inside, locked in. I don't know what he's doing, but he's unstable. Possibly armed." She clutched her chest like she was auditioning for daytime TV. "I fear for my life. I fear for the community. You have to send someone now." Mark kept his voice steady. "Ma'am, are you currently in danger?" Pause. Then louder. "He's dangerous, I think. I think I might need special forces, yes, like a tactical team. Or maybe an airlift." Mark raised an eyebrow. His supervisor looked over. "Did she say airlift?" He nodded slowly. "Yup, an HOA emergency extraction." They both leaned back in silence. Meanwhile, Victoria was pacing, yelling into her phone, waving her arms at my door like I had hostages. And the best part, my cameras caught every second. Full audio, wide angle, time-stamped. She had no clue she was filming her own downfall. It started with a low thrum. Distant at first, then louder. The chop of blades. A helicopter. I peeked through the blinds. Victoria stood tall on my porch arms, crossed a smug smile stretching across her face like she just summoned an army. And she had. First, one police cruiser turned the corner, then two more. No sirens. Just lights. Serious. Controlled. Next came the fire truck. Then an ambulance. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Doors opened. Phones appeared. The quiet cul-de-sac had become a crime scene. Victoria straightened her blazer, fluffed her hair, and pointed dramatically at my front door like she expected me to come out wielding a bazooka. She had fully committed to the fantasy. And yet, her smile started to falter as the helicopter wind blew her perfect bun sideways. For the first time, doubt crept into her eyes. She was expecting backup. What she got was reality. I waited until the timing felt cinematic. Then I opened the door. Slowly. Calmly. Wearing slippers, holding my mug, and chewing the last bite of toast. Victoria jumped like I detonated something. "There! That's him!" she shrieked. "He's dangerous. He locked himself in." The lead officer, Sergeant Miller, didn't flinch. He looked me over, then looked at the chaos around us. Cruisers, medics, chopper, wide-eyed neighbors. Then back to me. "Cardigan. Bedhead." "Sir," he asked, "are you—" "In distress?" I sipped my coffee. "Not unless someone tries to kick my door in again." Victoria pointed. "He refused lawful HOA inspection. He could have anything in there." Miller paused. "Ma'am, refusing an HOA check is not a felony." She blinked. Her fantasy was unraveling. I stepped aside. "You're welcome to look around, Sergeant. Also, the dispatcher might be my son." That made Miller raise an eyebrow, and things got interesting fast. Sergeant Miller raised a hand toward Victoria. "Ma'am, did you see any weapons?" Was there a threat made? She hesitated. Well, no, but his attitude, he's evasive. Secretive. The officers glanced at each other. This wasn't going the way she imagined. Sir Miller said, "Mind if we take a quick look standard, given the nature of the call?" "Not at all." I stepped aside. "I was designing door systems. Feel free." 2 officers entered. 10 minutes later, they re-emerged, nothing but peace books and half a cup of cold coffee. Meanwhile, I pulled up the video feed on my tablet. Full HD footage of Victoria jiggling my lock, failing, then calling 911 with wild accusations. I handed it to Miller. He watched in silence. Each second that played, her face paled. Each lie caught in perfect clarity. This wasn't just petty anymore. It was criminal. Sergeant Miller finished watching the footage. He didn't say a word, just slowly turned to Victoria. Expression unreadable, jaw tight. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "you claimed this man was a threat, armed, barricaded, that you feared for your safety." Victoria stiffened. "Yes, I was acting in good faith, for the community." His voice cooled. "The video shows no threat, no weapon, no attempt to harm. Just you, attempting to access private property with a questionable key." "I was doing my duty," she snapped. "This house is part of HOA jurisdiction. It's his private residence," Miller said. "You don't outrank state law." Her eyes darted. Neighbors were watching now. Phones recording. The badge of authority she wore in her mind. It cracked. I didn't mean for this to escalate," she stammered. I was trying to protect." But the words collapsed mid-sentence, and so did her control. Sergeant Miller exhaled through his nose long and slow. "This entire response," he said, gesturing to the cruiser's fire trucks, "and yes, the still hovering helicopter was based on your false report." Victoria opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "You claimed danger weapons, emotional distress. You misused emergency services and fabricated a public safety threat. I panicked," she whispered. "I thought—" He raised a hand. "Save it for your attorney." Then he turned. "Officer Jones." "Miranda, her." The handcuffs clicked. Not loud, but unmistakable. Gasps rippled down the street. A toddler asked Mommy, "Is that the HOA lady?" Victoria's silver hair gleamed in the morning sun. As her wrists were locked behind her back, the clipboard fell to the pavement. So did whatever illusion of power she had left. And me, I just stood there. Calm, quiet, exactly like she claimed I couldn't be. As the cruiser pulled away, a strange thing happened. People stepped outside. Real people. Neighbors I hadn't seen in weeks. It was like the moment Victoria's heels left the pavement, the fear evaporated. Doors opened, curtains pulled back, conversations resumed. Old Mrs. Hanley gave me a knowing nod. Mr. Diaz clapped once loud and proud. Even the Thompsons, who hadn't made eye contact in months, walked over and said, "About time." For the first time in a year, the street felt light. Kids chalked on sidewalks again. Wind chimes dared to tinkle. Lawns grew freely, imperfectly, beautifully. Someone put out garden gnomes, 5 of them, and someone else hung a sign, "No master keys allowed." It wasn't rebellion, it was relief. The empire of silence Victoria built had crumbled, and the neighborhood finally remembered it didn't belong to a title. It belonged to the people living in it. Victoria's arrest wasn't the end. It was the crack, and everything rotten poured out. Turns out the master key scam? Just a distraction. Investigators dug deeper. They found thousands siphoned from HOA funds hidden under consulting security and legal fees. Money trail, straight to her cousin. A fake locksmith. Unlicensed. Another trail spa retreats. Gift cards. Even a wire transfer labeled petty cash sent to her daughter's Venmo. The HOA board complicit or clueless. Brenda folded fast. Arthur Jenkins cried during questioning. The whole operation collapsed in a week. Victoria didn't just lose her power. She set fire to her own empire. Subpoena. State versus Victoria Harlow. I wasn't surprised. I had everything: footage logs, letters, timelines. Mark texted me that night. She has no idea who she picked a fight with. The prosecutor was direct. This isn't just about lies, it's fraud, tampering, misuse of public resources. She showed me an account spreadsheet. Multiple payments from the HOA account under aliases 1 matched a shell company owned by Victoria's sister. "You're not a witness, you're ground zero." I nodded. She built her castle out of bylaws and fear. Now we were pulling every brick. Courtroom full. Victoria entered like it was still her HOA meeting blazer. Crisp eyes hollow. She took the stand. Delivered her monologue. I acted in good faith. I only wanted order. I didn't know it would go this far. She teared up, paused for effect, called me hostile, called the rules unclear, the prosecutor unbothered. She clicked play. 911 audio, "I need an airlift. He's dangerous." Laughter in the room. Judge didn't smile. Then came bank records. Payment from HOA labeled emergency services fee, $1,200 sent to her sister's account. Gasps. Even Brenda looked away. Victoria's face twitched. No script could save her now, because this wasn't a show. It was justice live and unfiltered. I took the stand, swore in, sat down. The room felt still, like it was holding its breath. The prosecutor asked simple questions. First, name, occupation. My relationship to the incident. I answered clearly, calmly. No drama, just facts. Then she asked about the key, the cameras, the threats, the letters. I opened my binder. Every document was labeled, indexed, time-stamped. I handed them over. Then came the footage: Victoria at my door jiggling the lock, calling 911 with wild claims. I didn't look at her, didn't need to. I spoke directly to the jury. This wasn't about safety, it was about control. I refused to give her power over my home, so she tried to take it by force, then lied when it didn't work. No anger in my voice, just resolve, because I wasn't there to destroy her. I was there to reveal her. The closing arguments were brutal. The prosecutor laid it bare. A pattern of harassment, abuse of power, financial misconduct, and a false emergency call that wasted tens of thousands in taxpayer resources. She didn't just misuse authority, the prosecutor said, voice calm, but cutting. She manufactured crisis for personal ego. She weaponized the system to punish defiance. Victoria's lawyer tried to spin it emotional stress, community pressure, misunderstood intentions. But the jury wasn't buying it. Deliberation lasted just under 2 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood eyes scanning the courtroom. On the charge of filing a false police report, guilty. On the charge of attempted unlawful entry, guilty. On the charge of embezzlement and fraud, guilty on all counts. Victoria didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stared forward, blinking slowly. The gavel came down, and so did everything she built on fear. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The courtroom wasn't as full this time, but the weight in the air was heavier. The judge, a firm, clear-eyed woman, didn't waste time. She spoke of broken trust, abused authority, and the cost of false power. Then came the numbers: 5 years in state prison, restitution of $128,000 to the HOA for misappropriated funds, full reimbursement to the county for emergency response costs, helicopter included, mandatory ethics training, post-release. Victoria sat motionless. Her lawyer's jaw was clenched, but he didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue. No tears, no speeches, just steel cuffs and a silent escort. She didn't turn to face the neighbors, didn't look at me. But I watched her until she disappeared through that door. Not out of spite, just closure. Because justice didn't need noise. It only needed weight. And today it landed. In the months that followed, the neighborhood breathed again. The board resigned. A special election was held. This time, people showed up. Mrs. Gable, who once got cited for rose petals, was voted in as president. She cried happy tears at the clubhouse. The new HOA rolled back half the absurd policies within the first week. Wind chimes returned. Bird feeders multiplied. Lawn flamingos staged a comeback. People started waving again, sharing recipes, borrowing rakes. One Saturday, I came outside to find chalk drawings on the sidewalk unapologetically messy. A little boy had drawn a helicopter. His sister wrote, "No more Karens." I smiled, not because things were perfect. They weren't, but they were ours again. Not ruled by fear or forced silence, but by people who cared enough to protect what mattered. It wasn't revenge, it was recovery, and it felt good. Life settled into rhythm again. I went back to consulting part-time, tending my garden full-time. The mailbox stood untouched, same height, slightly crooked, proudly mine. Mark got promoted. His calm, by-the-book handling of Victoria's infamous 911 call became a quiet legend at the dispatch center. "Dad," he said once over coffee, I knew she was bluffing, but I had to let her bury herself properly. He was right. She did all the digging. We just handed her the rope and pressed record. Neighbors still ask me about it sometimes. They laugh, shake their heads, call me the guy who took down the HOA Karen. I don't mind, because it wasn't just about her. It was about drawing a line and standing still when someone tries to cross it. I didn't win by yelling. I won by watching, documenting, and refusing to be bullied open. Some doors stay locked for a reason. Victoria Harlow didn't fall because someone shouted louder. She fell because someone stood still, calm, prepared, and unwilling to be bullied. This wasn't just about HOA politics or power trips. It was about boundaries. About saying no and meaning it. Because sometimes what starts as a petty rule turns into something bigger. And when no one pushes back, people like her keep pushing further. Have you ever had to stand your ground against someone who thought they were above the rules, or seen a small situation spiral way out of proportion? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. And hey, if this story resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and maybe tag a friend who's dealt with their own Karen. You never know who needs to hear they're not alone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay smart, stay steady, and keep your doors locked tight.